having such a good time. I'm having a ball. Don't stop me now. Hey
everybody, welcome back to another installment of Harry Potter. Our camera has stuffed up at the beginning of the video, so here's some gameplay. Enjoy.
Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. We started a new book. This time it didn't take as long because we didn't move houses and we're still in the same place. And
It's been a couple of months, hasn't it? No, we're still in January. No mistake.
Okay. First chapter.
What's the book called?
Prisoner of Azkaban. Chapter 1.
Harry Potter was a highly unusual boy in many ways. For one thing, he hated the summer holidays more than any other time of year. For another, he really wanted to do his homework, but was forced to do it in secret, in the dead of night, and he also happened to be a wizard. It was nearly midnight, and he was lying on his front in his bed, the blankets drawn right over his head like a tent, a torch in one hand, and a large leather-bound book, A History of Magic, by Bathilda Bagshot, propped open against the pillow. Harry moved the tip of his huge eagle feather quill down the page, frowning as he looked for something that would help him write his essay. Witch burning in the 14th century was completely pointless. Discuss. The quill paused at the top of a likely-looking paragraph. Harry pushed his round glasses up his nose, moved his torch closer to the book, and read. Non-magic people, more commonly known as muggles, were particularly afraid of magic in medieval times, but not very good at recognizing it. On the rare occasion that they did catch a real witch or wizard, burning had no effect whatsoever. The witch or wizard would perform a basic flame-freezing charm, and then pretend to shriek with pain while enjoying a gentle, tickling sensation. Indeed, Gwendolen the Weird enjoyed being burnt so much that she allowed herself to be caught no fewer than 47 times in various disguises. Harry put his quill between his teeth and reached underneath his pillow for his ink bottle and a roll of parchment. Slowly and very carefully, he unscrewed the ink bottle, dipped his quill into it, and began to write, pausing every now and then to listen, because if any of the Dursleys heard the scratching of his quill on their way to the bathroom, he'd probably find himself locked in the cupboard under the stairs for the rest of the summer. The Dursley family of number 4 Privet Drive was the reason that Harry never enjoyed his summer holidays. Uncle Vernon and Aunt Petunia and their son Dudley were Harry's only living relatives. They were muggles, and they had a very medieval attitude towards magic. Harry's dead parents, who had been a witch and a wizard themselves, were never mentioned under the Dursleys' roof. For years, Aunt Petunia and Uncle Vernon had hoped that if they kept Harry as downtrodden as possible, they would be able to squash the magic out of him. To their fury, they had been unsuccessful, and now lived in terror of anyone finding out that Harry had spent most of the last 2 years at Hogwarts, School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. The most the Dursleys could do these days was to lock away Harry's spellbooks, wand, cauldron, and broomstick at the start of the summer holidays, and forbid him to talk to the neighbours. This separation from his spellbooks had been a real problem for Harry, because his teachers at Hogwarts had given him a lot of holiday work. One of the essays, a particularly nasty one about shrinking potions, was for Harry's least favourite teacher, Professor Snape, who would be delighted to have an excuse to give Harry detention for a month. Harry had therefore seized his chance in the first week of the holidays, while Uncle Vernon, Aunt Petunia and Dudley had gone out into the front garden to admire Uncle Vernon's new company car in very loud voices so that the rest of the street would notice it too. Harry had crept downstairs, picked the lock on the cupboard under the stairs, grabbed some of his books and hidden them in his bedroom. As long as he didn't leave spots of ink on the sheets, the Dursleys need never know what he was studying magic by night. Harry was keen to avoid trouble with his aunt and uncle at the moment, as they were already in a bad mood with him, all because he'd received a telephone call from a fellow wizard one week into the school holidays. Ron Weasley, who was one of Harry's best friends at Hogwarts, came from a whole family of wizards. This meant he knew a lot of things Harry didn't, but he had never used a telephone before. Most unluckily, it had been Uncle Vernon who had answered the call. "Vernon Dursley speaking." Harry, who happened to be in the room at the time, froze as he heard Ron's voice answer. "Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? I want to talk to Harry Potter." Ron was yelling so loudly that Uncle Vernon jumped and held the receiver a foot away from his ear, staring at it with an expression of mingled fury and alarm. "Who is this?" he roared in the direction of the mouthpiece. "Who are you?" "Ron Weasley," Ron bellowed back, as though he and Uncle Vernon were speaking from opposite ends of a football pitch. "I'm a friend of Harry's from school." Uncle Vernon's small eyes swiveled around to Harry, who was rooted to the spot. "There is no Harry Potter here," he roared, now holding the receiver at arm's length, as though frightened it might explode. "I don't know what school you're talking about. Never contact me again. Don't you come near my family." And he threw the receiver back onto the telephone.
So he's saying Harry is his family?
I mean, yeah, in a roundabout sort of way. Don't come near my family. He's probably not directly referring to Harry there, but...
Single column in my house or something.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
And he threw the receiver back onto the telephone as if dropping a poisonous spider. The row that had followed had been one of the worst ever. "How dare you give this number to people like you?" Uncle Vernon had roared, spraying Harry with spit. Ron obviously realised that he'd got Harry into trouble, because he hadn't called again. Harry's other best friend from Hogwarts, Hermione Granger, hadn't been in touch either. Harry suspected that Ron had warned Hermione not to call, which was a pity, because Hermione, the cleverest witch in Harry's ear, had Muggle parents, knew perfectly well how to use a telephone, and would probably have had enough sense not to say that she went to Hogwarts. So Harry had no word from any of his wizarding friends for 5 long weeks, and this summer was turning out to be almost as bad as the last one. There was just one very small improvement. After swearing that he wouldn't use her to send letters to any of his friends, Harry had been allowed to let his owl, Hedwig, out at night. Uncle Vernon had given in because of the racket Hedwig made if she was locked in her cage all the time. Harry finished writing about Wendell and the Weird, and pausing to listen again, the silence in the dark house was broken only by the distant grunting snores of his enormous cousin, Dudley. It must be very late. Harry's eyes were itching with tiredness. Perhaps he'd finish this essay tomorrow night. He replaced the top of the ink bottle, pulled an old pillowcase from under his bed, put the torch, a history of magic, his essay, quill, and ink inside it, got out of bed, and hid the lot under a loose floorboard under his bed. Then he stood up, stretched, and checked the time on the luminous alarm clock in his bedside table. It was 1 o'clock in the morning. Harry's stomach gave a funny jolt. He had been 13 years old, without realising it, for a whole hour. Yet another unusual thing about Harry was how little he looked forward to his birthdays. He had never received a birthday card in his life. The Dursleys had completely ignored his last 2 birthdays, and he had no reason to suppose they would remember this one. Harry walked across the dark room, past Hedwig's large empty cage, to the open window. He leant on the sill, the cool night air pleasant on his face after a long time under the blankets. Hedwig had been absent for 2 nights now. Harry wasn't worried about her. She'd gone this long before, but he'd hoped she'd be back soon. She was the only living creature in this house who didn't flinch at the sight of him. Harry, though still rather small and skinny for his age, had grown a few inches over the last year. His jet-black hair, however, was just as it always had been, stubbornly untidy, whatever he did to it. The eyes behind his glasses were bright green.
No, that's Harry in the 4th movie. Very untidy. Okay, sorry.
The eyes behind his glasses were bright green, and on his forehead, clearly visible through his hair, was a thin scar shaped like a bolt of lightning. Of all the unusual things about Harry, this scar was the most extraordinary of all. It was not, as the Dursleys had pretended for 10 years, a souvenir of the car crash that had killed Harry's parents, because Lily and James Potter had not died in a car crash. They had been murdered, murdered by the most feared dark wizard for 100 years, Lord Voldemort. Harry had escaped from the same attack with nothing more than a scar on his forehead, when Voldemort's curse, instead of killing him, had rebounded upon its originator. Barely alive, Voldemort had fled. But Harry had come face to face with him since at Hogwarts. Remembering their last meeting as he stood at the dark window, Harry had to admit he was lucky even to have reached his 13th birthday. He scanned the starry sky for a sign of Hedwig, perhaps soaring back to him with a dead mouse dangling from her beak, expecting praise. Gazing absently over the rooftops, it was a few seconds before Harry realised what he was seeing. Silhouetted against the golden moon, and growing larger every moment, was a large, strangely lopsided creature, and it was flapping in Harry's direction. He stood quite still, watching it sink lower and lower. For a split second he hesitated, his hand on the window latch, wondering whether to slam it shut, but then the bizarre creature soared over one of the street lamps at Privet Drive, and Harry, realising what it was, leapt aside. Through the window soared 3 owls, 2 of them holding up the third, which appeared to be unconscious. They landed with a soft flump on Harry's bed, and the middle owl, which was large and grey, keeled right over and lay motionless. There was a large package tied to its legs. Harry recognised the unconscious owl at once. His name was Errol, and he belonged to the Weasley family. Harry dashed to the bed at once, untied the cords around Errol's legs, took off the parcel, and then carried Errol to Hedwig's cage. Errol opened one bleary eye, gave a feeble hoot of thanks, and began to gulp some water. Harry turned back to the remaining owls. One of them, the large snowy female, was his own Hedwig. She too was carrying a parcel, and looked extremely pleased with herself. She gave Harry an affectionate nip with her beak as he removed her burden, then flew across the room to join Errol. Harry didn't recognise the third owl, a handsome tawny one, but he knew at once who it had come from, because in addition to the third parcel, it was carrying a letter bearing the Hogwarts crest. When Harry relieved this owl of its post, it ruffled its feathers importantly, stretched its wings, and took off through the window into the night. Harry sat down on his bed, grabbed Errol's package, ripped off the brown paper, and discovered a present wrapped in gold, and his first ever birthday card. Fingers trembling slightly, he opened the envelope. 2 pieces of paper fell out, a letter and a newspaper cutting. The cutting had clearly come out of the wizarding newspaper, the Daily Prophet, because the people in the black and white photo were moving. Harry picked up the cutting, smoothed it out, and read, "Ministry of Magic employee scoops grand prize. Arthur Weasley, head of the Misuse of Muggle Artifacts Office at the Ministry of Magic, has won the annual Daily Prophet Grand Prize Galleon Draw. A delighted Mr. Weasley told the Daily Prophet, 'We will be spending the gold on a summer holiday in Egypt, where our eldest son Bill works as a curse breaker for Gringotts Wizarding Bank. The Weasley family will be spending a month in Egypt, returning for the start of the new school year at Hogwarts, which 5 of the Weasley children currently attend.'" And there's a picture of all the Weasley kids.
Cute.
Yeah. I'll take a picture of that. Put that in later.
Yeah.
Harry scanned the moving photograph, and a grin spread across his face as he saw all 9 of the Weasleys waving furiously at him. 9 kids.
I know.
Oh my god.
It gives me a heart attack, I'm not even kidding. I go, oh my god. Oh.
Molly Weasley must have been pregnant for like 7 years. Just straight. Just no break. Pregnant baby. Pregnant baby. Just shooting them out.
Shooting them out.
Probably not shooting them
And
out.
in one instead he shoot 2 up. Okay.
Standing in front of a large pyramid, plump little Mrs. Weasley, tall, balding Mr. Weasley, 6 sons and 1 daughter. Right in the middle of the picture was Ron, tall and gangling, with his pet rat Scabbers on his shoulder and his arm around his little sister Ginny. Harry couldn't think of anyone who deserved to win a large pile of gold more than the Weasleys, who were very nice and extremely poor. awful thought to have about your friend. Like, oh, they're really nice, but so poor. Like, he picked up
Yeah,
Ron's
why would
letter.
you think about someone's money?
What?
Oh my god, they're poor. Even though they're so nice and they, like, act as I'm one of their family sometimes and they're nice. I keep saying this word, but they're nice. Who
They have
cares about-
magic. I would give up all my money for magic.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And then again, why would you care if your friend is rich or not? What is it gonna do to you? Harry, you're rich. Are you giving any of your money to Ron? No.
No.
It's okay.
Dear Harry, happy birthday. Look, I'm really sorry about that telephone call. I hope the muggles didn't give you a hard time. I asked Dad, and he reckons I shouldn't have shouted. It's brilliant here in Egypt. Bill's taken us around all the tombs, and you wouldn't believe the curses those old Egyptian wizards put on them. Mum wouldn't let Ginny come in the last one. There were all these mutant skeletons in there, of muggles who'd broken in and grown extra heads and stuff. Couldn't believe it when Dad won the Daily Profit draw. 700 galleons. Most of it's gone on this holiday. But they're going to buy me a new wand for next year. Harry remembered only too well the occasion when Ron's old wand had snapped. It had happened when the car the two of them had been flying to Hogwarts had crashed into a tree in the school grounds. We'll be back about a week before term starts, and we'll be going up to London to get my wand and our new books. Any chance of meeting you there? Don't let the muggles get you down. Try and come to London. Ron. P.S. Percy's head boy. He got the letter last week. Harry glanced back at the photograph. Percy, who was in his 7th and final year at Hogwarts, was looking particularly smug. He had pinned his head boy badge to the fez, perched jauntily on top of his neat hair, his horn-rimmed glasses flashing in the Egyptian sun. Harry now turned to his present and unwrapped it. Inside was what looked like a miniature glass spinning top. There was another note from Ron beneath it. Harry, this is a pocket sneakoscope. If there's someone untrustworthy around, it's supposed to light up and spin. Bill says it's rubbish, sold for wizard tourists, and isn't reliable, because it kept lighting up at dinner last night. But he didn't realise Fred and George had put beetles in his soup. Bye, Ron. Harry put the pocket sneakoscope on his bedside table, where it stood quite still, balanced on its point, reflecting the luminous hands of his clock. He looked at it happily for a few seconds, then picked up the parcel Hedwig had brought. Inside this, too, there was a wrapped present, a card and a letter, this time from Hermione.
No.
Dear Harry, Ron wrote me to tell me about his phone call to your Uncle Vernon. I do hope you're all right. I'm on holidays in France at the moment, and I didn't know how I was going to send this to you. What if they'd opened it at customs? But then Hedwig turned up. I think she wanted to make sure you got something for your birthday for a change. I bought your present by owl order. There was an advertisement in the Daily Prophet. I've been getting it delivered. It's so good to keep up with what's going on in the wizarding world. Did you see that picture of Ron and his family a week ago? I bet he's learning loads. I'm really jealous. The ancient Egyptian wizards were fascinating.
Being jealous of someone
Learning.
on a holiday, learning.
Yeah.
Not that they're having fun; they're on holiday. Okay.
There's some interesting local history of witchcraft here too. I've rewritten my whole history of magic essay to include some of the things I've found out. I hope it's not too long. It's 2 rolls of parchment more than Professor Binns asked for. Ron says he's going to be in London in the last week of the holidays. Can you make it? Will your aunt and uncle let you come? I really hope you can. If not, I'll see you on the Hogwarts Express on September the 1st. Love from Hermione. P.S. Ron says Percy's head boy. I'll bet Percy's really pleased. Ron doesn't seem too happy about it. Harry laughed again as he put Hermione's letter aside and picked up her present. It was very heavy. Knowing Hermione, he was sure it would be a large book full of very difficult spells. But it wasn't. His heart gave a huge bound as he ripped back the paper and saw a sleek black leather case with silver words stamped across it. Broomstick Servicing Kit. Wow, Hermione, Harry whispered, unzipping the case to look inside. There was a large jar of Fleetwood's high finish handle polish, a pair of gleaming silver-tailed twig clippers, a tiny brass compass to clip onto your broom for long journeys, and a handbook of do-it-yourself broom care. Apart from his friends, the thing that Harry missed most about Hogwarts was Quidditch, the most popular sport in the magical world, highly dangerous, very exciting, and played on broomsticks. Harry happened to be a very good Quidditch player. He had been the youngest person in a century to be picked for one of the Hogwarts house teams. One of Harry's most prized possessions was his Nimbus 2000 racing broom. Harry put the leather case aside and picked up his last parcel. He recognised the untidy scrawl on the brown paper at once. This was from Hagrid, the Hogwarts gamekeeper. He tore off the top layer of paper and glimpsed something green and leathery, but before he could unwrap it properly, the parcel gave a strange quiver, and whatever was inside it snapped loudly, as though it had jaws. Harry froze. He knew that Hagrid would never send him anything dangerous on purpose, but then, Hagrid didn't have a normal person's view of what was dangerous. Hagrid had been known to befriend giant spiders, buy vicious three-headed dogs from men in pubs, and sneak illegal dragon eggs into his cabin. Harry poked the parcel nervously. It snapped loudly again. Harry reached for the lamp on his bedside table, gripped it firmly in one hand, and raised it over his head, ready to strike. Then he seized the rest of the wrap in his other hand and pulled, and out fell a book. Harry just had time to register its handsome green cover, emblazoned with the golden title, The Monster Book of Monsters, before it flipped onto its edge and scuttled sideways along the bed like some weird crab. "Uh-oh," Harry muttered. The book toppled off the bed with a loud clunk and shuffled rapidly across the room. Harry followed it stealthily. The book was hiding in the dark space under his desk. Praying that the Dursleys were still fast asleep, Harry got down onto his hands and knees and reached towards it. Ouch! The book snapped shut on his hand, and then flapped past him, still scuttling on its covers. Harry scrambled around, threw himself forward, and managed to flatten it. Uncle Vernon gave a loud, sleepy grunt in the room next door. Hedwig and Errol watched interestedly as Harry clamped the struggling book tightly into his arms. I can't read at the moment. Hedwig and Errol watched interestedly as Harry clamped the struggling book tightly in his arms, hurried to his chest of drawers and pulled out a belt, which he buckled tightly around it. The monster book shuddered angrily, but could no longer flap and snap, so Harry threw it down on the bed and reached for Hagrid's card. "Dear Harry, happy birthday. Think you might find this useful for next year. Won't say no more here. Tell you when I see you. Hope the muggles are treating you right. All the best, Hagrid." It struck Harry as ominous that Hagrid thought a biting book would come in useful, but he put up Hagrid's card next to Ron and Hermione's, grinning more broadly than ever. Now there was only the letter from Hogwarts left. Noticing that it was rather thicker than usual, Harry slit open the letter, pulled out the first page of parchment within, and read, "Dear Mr. Potter, please note that the new school year will begin on September the 1st. The Hogwarts Express will leave from King's Cross Station, platform 9 3/4 at 11 o'clock. Third years are permitted to visit the village of Hogsmeade at certain weekends. Please give the enclosed permission form to your parent or guardian to sign. A list of books for next year is enclosed. Yours sincerely, Professor M. McGonagall, Deputy Headmistress." Harry pulled out the Hogsmeade permission form and looked at it. No longer grinning, it would be wonderful to visit Hogsmeade at weekends. He knew it was an entirely wizarding village, and he had never set foot there, but how on earth was he going to persuade Uncle Vernon or Aunt Petunia to sign the form? He looked over at the alarm clock. It was now 2 o'clock in the morning. Deciding that he'd worry about the Hogsmeade form when he woke up, Harry got back into his bed and reached up to cross another day off the chart he'd made for himself, counting down the days left until his return to Hogwarts. Then he took off his glasses and lay down, eyes open, facing his 3 birthday cards. Extremely unusual though he was, at that moment, Harry Potter felt like everyone else, glad for the first time in his life that it was his birthday. That's it. That's the chapter.
Cool.
Anything else?
I've said this before, but I notice it more again. I'm gonna say it even more if I have to, but Harry has really, really nice people around him. And I know he hasn't been, he's not blessed to have family, but they are like his family and they're really good. Yeah.
I agree. Did you notice anything in this chapter?
Anything new? I mean, yeah, Ron calling and stuff. But I didn't get any new information that I go whoa, did I have to?
This was kind of like a
whimsical
intro,
yeah,
reintroductory chapter for Harry in kind of the Harry Potter world. And I noticed that J.K. Rowling does this for, I think this is the last book she does it, where she kind of says Harry Potter was a highly unusual boy, but she introduces him totally, so as if you picked up this book for the first time. You didn't really need to read the first two books to kind of pick this one up and be like, what's going on? Who is this? It reintroduces
Muggles,
everything. And each of the first three books are kind of standalone books. You don't really need to know the first one. It's not until,
I mean, Horcrux and stuff.
Yeah, but you're kind of informed of what those are in hindsight. They flash back to it and they explain it. I don't think it's essential. If you were a kid and you went to your library and you're like, I want Harry Potter, and the librarian just happened to give you Prisoner of Azkaban, you could read this.
Yeah,
and
you would know what it's in.
You'd know what was going on.
Yeah.
The trip to Egypt.
Yeah, that was in the movie.
It kind of happened in the movie, but they didn't really explain.
It was just a picture.
Yeah, they didn't explain
newspaper.
that they won the thing.
No.
It's a little bit more fleshed out. The phone call obviously was different. The sneaker scope though, the gift that Ron gave to Harry, and how Ron was like, "Oh, it didn't really work. It's always going off." And they said that it was going off because Fred and George put beetles in. I don't know which was it, Charlie, or was it which brother was it? Bill. No, it was Bill. Bill said it was rubbish. Can you think of a particular reason why the sneaker scope might have been going off?
No. What is it?
The sneaker scope goes off when somebody you can't trust is nearby. If there's danger nearby. It's if there's...
the Dursleys?
No. This is... Ron said it was going off near him. It wasn't going off near Harry at all. It was silent on Harry's bedside table. But it was going off near Ron all the time. While they were in Egypt.
Is a person came out of Azkaban close to there?
No.
Is Voldemort?
Nope.
Am I supposed to know? Or
No. Well, you've seen the movies. We'll figure it out together.
Was it in the movie?
Yeah, it was in the movie. The sneaker scope's not in the movie, though, so you don't know.
Then who is it?
You'll find out in several chapters' time. Put it out of your mind.
No.
Is
it Bellatrix?
No. Percy's head boy. He got the letter last week.
Yeah.
God, I hate him.
Yeah.
I don't like Percy.
Okay.
And Hagrid got Harry the book. The monster book. And it bit Harry.
Yeah. Was that the one Hagrid gave him? That's not what Hagrid gave him.
Yeah.
Was it?
Hagrid gave it to him in the books.
Oh, really?
In the movie, he just had all his books delivered by Fudge did it for him, I think. But no, Hagrid got him the book.
I remember last time we watched it, you were like, "Oh, that poor thing's mouth is closed.
Yeah.
Imagine your mouth being closed." And I was like, "Oh yeah, you're right."
Poor book. Because it's
poor book.
It's sentient, I guess. is scared and it ran away and it bit Harry. Like, it's obviously...
It was like a dog that was neglected, you know?
Yes.
Whatever.
And then Harry just puts like a belt around it.
My God.
Other than that, yeah, no, this is a really short sort of introductory chapter. I don't think there's much going on. Next chapter's Aunt Marge's big mistake.
Oh my God, yes.
That'll be fun.
One of my favorite scenes as a kid.
We're hoping to do chapters more regularly. As you can see, well, you probably can't see the cameras off.
As you can see.
We got a new setup that is hopefully easier to set up. Hopefully it looks just as good as the last one.
Last one didn't look good.
The last one didn't look good. I think
the light was bad.
they're both just a couch with a bloody sheet behind us.
Like the lighting was bad. No, not the setup.
Let us know what you think of the setup, because there's not much to reflect in this chapter. We actually did have a comment at the end of the last book, didn't we?
Yes,
from
I opened it.
Captain Subtle. Yeah. Thanks, Captain Subtle, for tuning in all the time.
Yeah, that's really nice. Thank you.
We like Professor Lupin too.
Yes. We do. And also poor Ginny.
Who's your favourite character in this book, you reckon? Just straight away off the top of your head.
I'm going to say the person we're going to find out that got away from Azkaban.
Sirius Black?
Yes.
Yeah. Mine's Aunt Marge. I love Aunt Marge.
I hope people don't judge me, but I just like Black family.
It's the aesthetic of them, isn't it?
No, they're cool. Yeah, she's awful, but I like the actor.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Alright, well, I don't actually have a favourite character from this book.
Yeah.
They're all pretty good. Yeah, I mean, I like Sirius and I like Remus and... I don't know. There's a couple of new characters in this book.
Mm-hmm.
I think Rita Skeeter is introduced in this one, I think.
Mm.
We got, like Sir Cadogan, who'll be in the portrait.
Yeah.
I don't know. Obviously, Peter Pettigrew's new. I don't know, Dementors are new. You could say they're a character.
Yeah, oh my God. It reminds me of that show, the theater thing we went to.
Where the Dementors are just like flying through the ceiling. Yeah.
Yes.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's lots of new characters in this book, and I can't remember off the top of my head because I haven't read the book in a while, and the movie kind of just cuts out heaps of people.
Yep.
But we will see. Anyway.
Okay. Thanks, guys, for watching.
Listening.
And, yes, listening in the end. Hope to see you again in the next video. Bye!
See ya. Okay, let's let our girl out.